The wind was already screaming through the Florida pine trees, bending radio towers like blades of grass. On the central screen in Eglin Air Base's command room, a red spiral swallowed the Gulf. Hurricane Viola, Category 5. Largest ever recorded this season. And moving straight toward Falcon Island, where 80 soldiers and 10 armored vehicles were trapped on a flooded causeway. Rescue command was chaos. Every available pilot had already refused the mission. Visibility 0. Winds at 140 knots. Impossible to land, let alone take off again. The last chopper that tried spun out and barely limped back. Colonel Reeves slammed his fist against the steel desk. "We need a C-17 in the air, now." That's when the doors creaked open. He looked like someone's retired uncle. Loose jacket, civilian consultant badge, 70 maybe gray beard, trimmed too neatly for a slouch, but his jeans were faded at the knees. No one noticed him walk in until he quietly said, "I can fly." For half a second the room went silent, then laughter. Nervous, scattered, then full-blown hysterics. A junior tech nearly dropped his coffee. "Is this a joke? Sir, this isn't a Microsoft flight simulator." Even the base's meme page was on fire within minutes. A blurry photo of the man in his faded Air Force cap, captioned, "Boomer thinks he's Maverick." But across the control room, an old major sat up straight, eyes narrowed. "Wait," he whispered. "That's not a consultant." He bolted to a terminal and began typing. Redacted records, encrypted files. One name pinged back with a clearance level marked Ultra Black. Renner John, call sign Raven 6. Project Orpheus. High-altitude stealth gliders. Orbital returns. Covert shuttle insertions. Pilot of the infamous ghost ship rescue in Kandahar. Then vanished. Officially listed as retired due to family tragedy. Unofficially, a myth. A story pilots told each other over drinks. The man who flew through a nuclear storm just to land a crippled prototype by feel. The one whose daughter died on a runway no one talks about. Back in the room, the old man sipped his black coffee. Colonel Reeves crossed the floor, squinting hard. "Renner." John nodded once. "I said," he repeated, "I can fly." Silence fell like a dropped wrench. The base held its breath. Reeves glanced back at the screen. 80 American lives. No volunteers. A hurricane roaring in like a demon. He turned. "Get him a flight suit." And in that moment, social media flipped from mockery to awe. Streams exploded. A live stream began titled, "Who is the Raven?" Because somewhere deep in the heart of a dying storm, a ghost had risen. And he was walking straight into hell. 10 years earlier, the hangar was silent, except for the metallic groan of twisted steel cooling under the sun. Smoke still curled from what was left of C-5 Galaxy. Its landing gear collapsed inward like a crushed ribcage. And beside the wreck, John Renner stood motionless. His right hand trembled around a small pink sneaker. Ellie, his 6-year-old daughter, had begged to ride just once in Daddy's big plane, just to taxi the strip. She wanted to feel what clouds felt like from the ground. But what should have been a routine systems test, 30 minutes idle then back to base, became her death sentence. A gear failure, that's what the report said. But John saw the grease stains where there should have been titanium pins. He saw the absence of signatures on line 8 of the maintenance checklist. He saw how the last inspection was logged in bulk, auto-signed, time-stamped 3 days before the inspection actually happened. He said nothing at the funeral. He just stood at the back, hands clenched so tight his nails cut into his palms. No one dared approach. Not even General Ames, who had the gall to say, "I know your pain." John walked off base the next morning, didn't request discharge, didn't wait for permission. He vanished into the system. For years he existed in the shadows of Air Force hangars. Officially civilian consultant, logistics support. Unofficially the ghost of Hangar 17. He asked for the bottom jobs. Reviewing reports, scrubbing through raw maintenance footage, running code audits. The young ones thought he was just some relic with nothing better to do. They mocked his flip phone, his refusal to use automatic tools. But John wasn't looking for efficiency. He was looking for cracks, and he found them. Tiny at first. A missed bolt here. A skipped calibration there. But always followed by the same pattern pressure from command to cut downtime. Incentives for speed. Awards for performance. He filed complaints. They vanished. He submitted evidence. It got restructured. Once a captain told him, "You don't understand how things are done now." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. He just watched and remembered. Late nights in forgotten corners of bases from Arizona to Alaska, he found copies of the same macro bypass check XE. A script buried inside logistics software that auto-approved maintenance checklists when deadlines were tight. A workaround. Plausible deniability, the same kind that killed Ellie. By now he'd collected enough to know it wasn't a glitch. It was policy. Unspoken, unofficial, but enforced by silence. And no one would listen. Because who listens to a grieving old man in cargo pants and a name tag that says consultant? But John knew what was coming. He tracked storm cycles. Read meteorological reports like they were war memos. Knew Falcon Island was vulnerable. That C-17s were being prepped for emergency evac scenarios. That the next time the sky cracked open, someone was going to send a plane into it that wasn't ready. He kept a go bag under his desk. A USB drive and a hollowed-out flashlight. A sealed envelope addressed to the Pentagon marked only with a red raven, and he waited. Not for revenge, for the moment someone said, "We can't," so he could say, "I can." 3 weeks before the hurricane, John Renner sat alone in the far corner of Hangar 9's maintenance office, a mug of burnt coffee steaming next to a pile of discarded repair logs. He wasn't supposed to be there. Technically, his consultant clearance only covered logistics assessments. But no one questioned him anymore. Most didn't even look up when he passed. He was part of the background now, like the creak of old vents or the flicker in the hallway light. That invisibility had become his weapon. He cracked open another logbook. The formatting was off just slightly. Line spacing tighter than regulation. He ran the page under his portable scanner and watched the data line up. The same script again. Hidden keystrokes, forged timestamps. The bypass check macro was still active. Worse, it had evolved. The new version hidden under a system update labeled Perf Boost V2.7 was stealthier. It only triggered when maintenance crews logged more than 80 hours of backlog. It created the illusion of inspections completed under pressure, saving thousands of man-hours. At the bottom of the code trail, a signature. Amos Bex Ointioit, Brigadier General Marcus Ames, the same man who stood at Ellie's funeral, the one who knew John's pain. John felt his chest tighten. Not with rage, not even sorrow, with clarity. This wasn't negligence anymore. This was engineered failure. A system-wide policy designed to favor stats over safety. And now it was backfiring silently, fatally. He printed the logs. Cross-referenced serial numbers. Found 3 aircraft in active service with components marked certified under this bypass C-17s, scheduled for hurricane relief readiness. One of them had a cracked load-bearing hinge in its tail section. It was the same fault line that split open C-5 Galaxy Hover 19, the same one that buried Ellie. He reported everything through internal channels. Silence. Then 2 days later, a formal warning was emailed to his civilian contractor address. Cease all unauthorized audits. This is your final advisory. John didn't respond. He knew what that meant. He pulled the envelope from his locker, the one marked with a red raven, and tucked it into the lining of his field jacket. Then he drove 47 miles to an old airfield simulator outside Pensacola. Paid cash. Walked into a cold, flickering chamber that still had the cockpit config of the 2007 model C-17. For For 7 nights, he trained alone. With storm data mapped from NOAA satellites, he ran flight sim after flight sim. Every pass calculated, every drop-in analyzed. He studied the hurricane's projected path, realized it would shear clean across Falcon Island's only escape corridor. There was a 72-minute window between wind wall breaches, where an aircraft could theoretically land if its pilot was willing to risk everything. He ran that window again and again, 16 times. On the 17th, the system said flight path viable. Margin of error 1.7%. John smiled for the first time in years. He went home, rechecked his USB. Then he stared at a photo of Ellie pinned to the back of his bedroom door. "Looks like I'm flying today, sweetheart." He didn't know exactly when the storm would hit, but he knew the day would come when someone in command would walk into that briefing room and say, "We have no pilot." And when that moment arrived, he wouldn't ask. He'd stand. John Renner stepped onto the tarmac, like he was walking into his own memory. The storm clouds had already begun to roll in thick, bruised slabs of sky, stacking against each other like ancient gods preparing for war. Wind howled against the hangar doors, and somewhere distant lightning crawled across the horizon. Inside the mission briefing room, no one noticed him at first. Pilots were arguing. Commanders were yelling. The last evac chopper had been rerouted, and the storm had moved faster than any model predicted. Falcon Island was about to be cut off completely. "We can't risk another bird," someone snapped. "We lose that squad, it's on us," a captain fired back. Renner waited until there was silence. "I can fly." Heads turned. Groans. An airman near the door rolled his eyes so hard it echoed in the room. The memes from earlier had already circled back around. "Here comes Grandpa Skywalker." Colonel Reeves stared at him like he was seeing a ghost. "You're not active military, Renner. You're not cleared for air command. Hell, you're not even cleared to step on the flight line without a safety escort." Renner didn't flinch. "The C-17s aren't airworthy. 3927 is the only one with a reinforced tail section that hasn't been touched by the script. I checked it myself. I can fly it." "You hacked into classified logs," someone shot back, incredulous. "No," John said, voice calm. "I just knew where to look." Whispers again. And somewhere someone finally dared to ask the question. "Wait, who is this guy?" A major older than most in the room cleared his throat. "Raven 6. Silence fell like a hammer. Colonel Reeves stiffened. "The Raven 6. John didn't smile. "That's what they called me. Back when planes still had souls." Still, the room resisted. "You're 67, a logistics officer said. "You're not rated for the new HUD. You haven't logged official hours in over a decade. We have pilots in peak condition refusing this run." Renner stepped closer. "And none of them know how to ride the backwash of a counter-rotating storm spiral with only one functioning stabilizer." He turned to Reeves. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me try." For a moment, no one moved. Then Colonel Reeves slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out a clearance badge. He tossed it to John. "You've got one chance." Outside, ground crews scrambled to prep onto 3927. The tarmac was slick with rain now. Thunder rumbled like incoming artillery. As John suited up, a young airman tried to hand him a co-pilot assignment. Sir Airman Colby's cleared to sit right seat. John looked at the kid, maybe 25, eyes wide, hands shaking. "No," he said gently. "He doesn't need to die today." He climbed the stairs into the cockpit alone. As the cargo ramp closed behind him, live feeds started rolling. Someone tagged the stream, "The Raven flies again." On social media, views soared past 500,000 in under 20 minutes. A comment floated to the top. "We're watching history. Or a funeral." The sky above Falcon Island wasn't a sky anymore. It was a throat. A spinning, howling, roiling throat of wind and water and fury. It screamed like a living thing. Lightning cracked across it in long, webbed fingers. The radar showed nothing but red, orange, and black. In the middle of that maelstrom, a single C-17 Globemaster punched through the chaos like a bullet through a silk sheet. Call sign Silent Raven. Inside the cockpit, John Renner's hands were steady. He rode the turbulence like he was dancing with an old partner he knew too well. The systems rattled. The HUD flickered, alarms buzzed like angry bees, but his focus never wavered. Behind him, 320 feet of steel and airframe. An empty hull waiting to be filled with 80 lives and 10 armored tanks. Ahead of him, a flooded airstrip, partially submerged visibility, near zero crosswinds, gusting at 90 knots. The tower on Falcon Island tried to warn him off. Abort. Repeat, abort, landing impossible. But Raven 6 didn't answer. He flipped the C-17 into partial manual, rolled it left 12 degrees to catch a slipstream between two wind channels. The move made no sense on radar, but to him it felt right. Like a gut instinct wired into his bones. On livestream, hundreds of thousands watched slack-jawed. "He's dropping into the hurricane," someone typed in all caps. "No shoot, no escort. Who is this guy?" The plane broke cloud cover at 800 feet. The runway appeared for 2 seconds. Enough. John slammed the gear down. The C-17 bounced once, then again, wheels skimming water. The tires howled. The frame groaned like it might split, but she held. A miracle. A memory. The base erupted. Soldiers sprinted through sheets of rain, whooping, waving flares, signaling him into the floodlit zone. Some just stood, frozen eyes wide, whispering, "He made it. He actually made it." Then they saw the cockpit door open, and only one man stepping down. No co-pilot, no backup, just an old man in a flight suit soaked to the bone, eyes sharp as fire. "Load up," John barked. 10 tanks, 80 soldiers, 2 crates of critical data. T-minus 20 minutes until the hurricane's spiral tightened again. Back in the tower, they were screaming. Takeoff window is narrowing. But John was already in the pilot's seat again, checking rear balance. The tanks made the weight limits dance on the red line, but he knew she could carry it. She had to. He throttled. The engines roared. Water exploded under the wheels as the C-17 tore down the makeshift runway. At the halfway mark, a stabilizer warning lit up red. Right side hydraulic pressure failing. The same system failure that took his daughter. Everyone in the tower held their breath. Everyone watching the stream shouted, "Pull up, pull up, pull up." But John didn't panic. He flicked a switch hidden beneath the yoke. A manual override from a patch he himself designed during Project Orpheus. Never approved, never tested, until now. "Come on, sweetheart," he whispered. The C-17 dipped, then rose. Cutting through the eye wall like a blade, she surged upward, tail heavy but rising fast. At 2,000 feet, the storm grabbed her. Lightning cracked inches off the nose. The plane shook so violently, one of the tanks in the cargo bay shifted half a foot. John gritted his teeth. "Hold together. Just hold." Back in the war room, cheers broke out. The feed cleared. On-screen, C-17, 3927, ascending through live storm pattern. Altitude stable. Payload secure. A junior airman stood and saluted the screen. One by one, others followed. In the chat, "He did it. The Raven flies. This man is a damn legend." But for John, it wasn't over. Back in his seat, he opened a secondary channel, one hidden from standard ops, and he uploaded the data logs. Every bypass script, every falsified report, every part compromised under Brigadier General Ames's command. A digital confession carried by the very aircraft built to hide it. When John landed 2 hours later at Eglin, there were no jokes, no smirks, only silence, then applause, and one soldier, barely 20, stepped forward, stood at attention, and whispered, "Permission to shake your hand, sir." John took it, gripped it tight, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt the weight begin to lift. 3 days later, a tribunal assembled behind closed doors. By then, the video of Renner's flight had crossed 10 million views. Not just pilots, but civilians. Families of deployed soldiers. veterans. Mechanics who'd signed those exact checklists and never questioned why. The footage played in newsrooms and bedrooms. A still shot, an old man in a flight suit silhouetted against a wall of storm was already printed on posters. Tagged in bold, "I can fly." But inside the Pentagon, the reaction was less poetic. Investigators reviewed every log Renner submitted, cross-checked tail numbers, analyzed the script bypass check and its buried signature Ames BX808, the same one Renner had pointed out a decade earlier. Brigadier General Marcus Ames was stripped of his title within 48 hours. Court-martialed under Article 92. His staff, those who approved the efficiency incentives, faced charges for dereliction of duty and falsifying operational readiness. In a quiet statement, the Department of the Air Force announced a full overhaul of its technical inspection protocols. Dozens of aircraft were grounded. Every base running Perf Boost V2.7 was shut down for manual audits. They called it the Raven Reform. Renner never gave another press statement. He didn't smile for cameras. He simply walked away from the podium after handing over the drive. But the Pentagon didn't forget. A letter arrived a week later at a modest wooden cabin in northern Alabama. No medals inside, no fanfare. Just an envelope cream-colored embossed with a single line. The United States Air Force formally acknowledges the service of Colonel John Renner. Inside a note handwritten by the Secretary of the Air Force, "We lost you once. We almost lost you again. But we will not forget this time. Thank you for flying when others couldn't." John placed the letter in a drawer beside a photo of Ellie. That night, he stood by her grave where the air was still and the sky clear. He didn't speak, just placed a tarnished pilot's badge against the stone, smoothed his thumb across her name. In the quiet, the wind moved through the trees like breath. Then his phone buzzed. Not a call, a message from an anonymous number. One line, "We remember Hangar 17. You made it matter." He stared at the screen, then locked the phone, and walked back inside. He never asked for a monument, but somehow one appeared. At the edge of the flight line at Eglin Air Base, they placed an old titanium tail fin salvaged from C-17 3992. It was scorched and weather-worn, the paint stripped by storm winds. At its base, a plaque, "To those who flew when others feared. Raven 6, and beside it a single phrase carved in steel. "I can fly." John Renner didn't attend the unveiling. Instead, he was 2 states away in a dusty hangar outside Montgomery, Alabama, opening the doors to something new. He called it Echo Flight, not a flight school. Not really. No uniforms, no recruitment pitches. Just a quiet space filled with old simulators, a few decommissioned cockpits, and silence. The kind of silence a grieving soul could land in. Echo Flight's first class included 7 teenagers' sons and daughters of service members who died in flight. Kids who didn't want medals, just answers. Just a place to sit in the cockpit and feel their parents' hands through the yoke. One boy, maybe 16, tugged at his hoodie and looked up from the simulator. "Mr. Renner," he asked, "is it true you flew into a hurricane with no co-pilot?" John didn't answer right away. He crouched beside the kid, glanced at the display, and adjusted the trim slightly. "No one flies alone," he said softly. "Not really." The boy didn't speak, just nodded, then leaned back into the chair. They flew for hours. John never charged a cent. Donations came in quietly, many from people he'd never met. Some from pilots who'd once laughed at the old man in jeans. Others from generals who now wore pins designed after Raven 6's patch. Social media kept him alive whether he liked it or not. Clips from Echo Flight trended under Theach Silent Raven. Live streams of kids learning to fly from the ghost of Hangar 17. One girl went viral for saying, "He doesn't teach you how to fly. He teaches you why you should." Renner didn't respond to any of it. He just kept showing up, unlocking the hangar at 6 a.m. each morning, wiping down the panels and listening to the wind roll in through the cracked windows. And sometimes when no one was looking, he'd sit in the oldest simulator, turn off the screens, close his eyes, and fly again. The graduation ceremony at the United States Air Force Academy looked like every other year, rows of crisp uniforms, proud parents' flags catching the sunlight. But this year there was no keynote speaker, no anthem, no flyover. Instead, a single screen lit up behind the cadets. A grainy video played a man walking toward a C-17 wind, ripping at his jacket, eyes locked on the horizon. No music. Just the raw feed of that day, the day the hurricane came. His voice echoed through the stadium. One more kiddo. The camera stayed on him as he climbed into the cockpit. Then the clip faded. Silence. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a ripple passed through the crowd, cadets rising slowly to their feet. Some saluted. Some just stood, hands by their sides, staring at the empty stage. Among them, a girl no older than 10 sat in the front row, a red hoodie pulled up around her face. She leaned into her mother and whispered, "Was that Grandpa?" Her mother didn't answer right away. She was crying too hard. But then she nodded. "Yes, baby," she whispered. That was the day he flew through the end of the world and came back. Later, as the sun dipped behind the bleachers and the field emptied, a junior cadet lingered alone near the monument in the courtyard, the one with the scorched tail fin and the steel-carved words. He reached out, touched the letters, and quietly said, "Permission to fly, sir." The wind answered soft and low, and far off in the distance, a bird, small, black, and silent, cut through the last rays of light, disappearing into the endless sky. If this story moved, you imagine what's coming next. Subscribe now and never miss another tale of redemption, courage, and the silent strength within us all. The sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning.